Introduction. Any theory at all, that begins with false assumptions will produce false results. Therefore, the most fundamental task of all is to examine and get right the assumptions that underlie a theory. Euclidean geometry is regarded as a masterpiece of producing axiomatic assumptions and then following through the logic of their consequences. So good was Euclidean geometry that it took thousands of years for mathematicians to realize it was wrong, or rather, not the full truth, and thus was born non-Euclidean geometry. Well, what else seems remarkably well supported, but may be wrong or not the full truth? How about science? How do science's fundamental assumptions stand up to scrutiny? Much less well than those of Euclidean geometry, that's for sure. Science is predicated on several assumptions, all of which are false. Materialism is the fundamental basis of reality. Wrong. It's idealism. Empiricism is the best approach to understanding ultimate reality. Wrong. It's rationalism. There is nothing outside space and time. Wrong. There is an immaterial frequency domain outside space and time. Science is the best way of apprehending reality. Wrong. It's mathematics. Anything for which no sensory evidence can be found does not exist. Wrong. There's a mathematical domain of hidden variables, rational unobservables, and nominal elements that has no connection whatsoever with the sensory world of appearances. Reality is based on real numbers. Wrong. It's based on complex numbers. 0 and infinity do not exist. Wrong. They emphatically do. Science falls apart at a particular aspect of existence that can be defined exactly at singularities. The whole logic of science collapses as soon as singularities are encountered. This is fantastically problematic for science, given that black holes are centered on singularities. Photons are singularities, and the whole of the Big Bang universe came from a singularity. What, ontologically, are singularities? Descartes gave us the answer hundreds of years ago when he defined thinking substance as unextended. Singularities, the ultimate unextended entities, are minds. And from that single fact, science has turned on its head. Mind does not come from matter. Matter comes from mind. Singularities, minds, are immaterial Fourier frequency domains outside space and time. The Fourier space-time world of matter is produced by Fourier frequency domains that are not in space and time. Mathematical reason can establish all of this. Science cannot. The scientific method can tell us nothing about the ultimate reality because scientific method is about the senses, but ultimate reality has nothing to do with the senses. How could it? After all, ultimate reality existed before any sense organs existed to provide sensory data. Any approach based on the senses is inherently false, since the universe did not begin with the senses. There is therefore a fundamental non-sensory reality. That reality is mathematical. What can the scientific method tell you about immaterial, non-sensory frequency domains outside space and time? Nothing at all. But math can tell us everything about these singularities down to the finest detail. Singularities are noumenal, not phenomenal. They have no appearance. You can't see, touch, hear, smell, or taste singularities. So, what experiments could you possibly perform on them? Mathematical reason alone can tell us about singularities, and since nothing can be more fundamental than singularities, only mathematical reason can tell us about fundamental reality. Singularities, which equal minds, have another name, most associated with Leibniz, but going right back to Pythagoras, they are monads. And monads have a religious name, souls. There's nothing mysterious about souls. They are simply mathematical singularities outside space and time. They are autonomous Fourier frequency domains. They are Leibnizian monads and Cartesian minds. They are the quintessence of ontological mathematics and the basis of everything. We can even write a precise equation for souls equals singularities equals minds equals monads, namely the God equation, which is the generalized Euler formula, the centerpiece of mathematical analysis and fundamental to physics. The Big Bang singularity from which the whole scientific world came was never anything other than a cosmic mind, a collective singularity composed entirely of individual singularities. The scientific world of space-time, matter, and appearances is 100% the product of immaterial mathematical minds with no appearance. What is truly astounding about science is that it is never once checked and has no mechanism for checking the veracity of its own assumptions. It regards such an exercise as philosophy, and it has utter contempt for philosophy. So, like Euclidean geometry, it makes the most grandiose cosmological claims, yet can't even prove the correctness of its own core assumptions. It doesn't care about the stark fact that if these assumptions are false, science must be false too, or be more charitable, radically incomplete. It just goes right ahead, regardless. It's no accident that science is an empirical subject. It has no time for rationalism, for the exercise of reason. It was reason that exposed the fallacies of Euclidean geometry, and it's reason that exposes the fallacies of scientific materialism. No person of reason could ever take the side of scientific empiricism against mathematical rationalism. If theories are only as good as their assumptions, the most important task is to test those assumptions. A theory with bad assumptions will be GIGO theory, garbage in and garbage out. Only reason and logic can perform this testing function. There's no scientific experiment that can be conducted that can establish whether or not the fundamental assumptions of scientific materialism are true. For example, no scientific experiment can prove that matter exists, that immaterial minds do not exist, that frequency domains outside space and time do not exist, that hidden variables and rational unobservables do not exist, that complex numbers do not exist, that zero and infinity do not exist, and so on. Given this incredible range of rational elements, contrary to the ideology and dogmatism of scientific materialism and empiricism that cannot be disproved, it's simply staggering that science so arrogantly claims that it's the only way to reveal true reality to us. Science typically dismisses everything non-scientific as silly, religious, or metaphysical speculation. However, as soon as the non-scientific world is defined as an ontological mathematical world, science no longer has a straw man to attack. It now has a deadly, serious component that no cheap arguments can prevail against. Science has an impossible task attacking mathematics, given that science itself is entirely dependent on mathematics for its own success. As soon as you realize that the hidden world that underlies empirical science is rational mathematics, your understanding of reality will be changed forever. Beneath the sensory scientific world is a non-sensory mathematical world of reason. That's why mathematics is at the heart of science. If you can't get that, you will never find the answer to existence. Let's be crystal clear about the nature of science. It's the science of appearances, phenomena, not of things in themselves, noumena. Things in themselves do not have any appearance. They are intelligible, not sensible, mathematical, not scientific, metaphysical, not physical, rational, not empirical. Metaphysics is simply that which comes after physics, and ontological mathematics is that which comes after science. Strictly rationalist mathematical metaphysics is what you get when you go beyond science, when you transcend science. What lies beyond science is, of course, ultimate reality itself. What is ultimate reality? It's the world of singularities, of pure analytic mathematics, with absolutely no appearance and no sensory qualities or properties. It's exactly where science cannot go, where all scientific theories come to grief. With one critical exception, no scientific concept applies to singularities. There are no atoms in singularities, no matter, no space, no time, no gravity, no strong and weak nuclear forces, no quarks, and no Higgs bosons. The sole exception is electromagnetism. But in truth, this is not a scientific concept at all. It properly belongs to ontological mathematics. Only electromagnetism involves analytic mathematics and can be 100% accommodated by singularities. A corollary is that the entire scientific world is born of electromagnetism equals light. No one ever said, "Let there be light," for the simple fact that electromagnetism is eternal. The demiurge, the creator, would instead have said, "Let there be matter." Matter, unlike light equals mind, is temporal and mortal. Here's a simple way to understand the difference between ontological mathematics and science. The former is about light, and the latter about matter, which is just broken light. Light is massless, dimensionless, unextended, spaceless, timeless, and has no appearance. You can't see light, in the sense that if a pure light beam is fired across your visual field, but none of its light enters your eyes, you won't see a thing. It is said that our eyes are the windows to the soul, and this is more or less literally true. When you see, you are seeing a mental frequency pattern, not a physical pattern. You are seeing frequency information reflected from the material world. Light is the mind. Light is composed of sinusoidal waves. These are the carriers of all mental information, all thoughts. Matter equals broken light equals broken thought. Thought is broken for a very simple reason. It's shared by all the minds. Unbroken thought belongs exclusively to individual minds. When minds share thoughts, that's when mathematics goes awry. That's when symmetry breaking occurs, when asymmetry and antisymmetry appear, when non-orthogonal out-of-phase mathematics takes place, and all of that is what produces matter. In other words, a mind can think its own thoughts via pure light. When minds attempt to share thoughts, the light from one mind is out of phase with the light of the other minds, and this causes the light to break. For example, breaking actually means being out of phase. A photon is made of one cosine wave and one sine wave, perfectly orthogonal to each, exactly 90 degrees out of phase. This 90-degree separation is perfect. For our purposes, we are going to define in phase as meaning that a sine wave and a matched cosine wave, for example, they have the same amplitude and frequency, are permanently orthogonal to each other. And out of phase is whenever they are non-orthogonal to each other. That is, we define orthogonal relations as being in phase, while out of phase relates to any situation where this 90 degrees phase separation does not hold. Mind is defined by perfect orthogonality between cosine and sine waves. Matter is defined by non-orthogonal relations between the cosine and sine waves. What could be simpler? Orthogonality reigns within individual minds outside space and time, and non-orthogonality reigns between minds in their shared space, which is none other than the material world of space and time. Orthogonality means the immaterial frequency domain outside space and time. Non-orthogonality means the material space-time domain. Fourier mathematics is all about orthogonal frequency functions versus non-orthogonal space-time functions. It's all in the math. Light is about immortality. Broken light about mortality. Light is the soul. Broken light, the body. Body and soul can coexist because they are just different aspects of light, broken and intact. Only a small low-energy band of light is capable of breaking. Wikipedia says, the strong, weak, and electromagnetic forces can all be understood as arising from gauge symmetries. The Higgs mechanism, the spontaneous symmetry breaking of gauge symmetries, is an important component in understanding the superconductivity of metals and the origin of particle masses in the standard model of particle physics. Without spontaneous symmetry breaking, the standard model of elementary particle interactions requires the existence of a number of particles. However, some particles, the W and Z bosons, would then be predicted to be massless, when in reality they are observed to have mass. To overcome this, spontaneous symmetry breaking is augmented by the Higgs mechanism to give these particles mass. Do you see that it's all about symmetry and symmetry breaking? How do you convert science to ontological mathematics? It couldn't be simpler. All you do is define a photon of light as a matched, in phase, pair of cosine and sine waves. Thus, you turn science of light into the mathematical study of analytic sinusoids. Next, you define any material particle as an out-of-phase pair of cosine and sine waves. Ergo, all of the different material particles are, upon closer inspection, different only in terms of their respective phase relations. To put it crudely, an electron could involve, say, a phase shift of 5 degrees from an orthogonality of its consistent cosine and sine waves, while a Higgs boson might involve only a 1-degree shift. The world of matter is simply where we study the out-of-phase relations of sines and cosines. Pure light is the immaterial Fourier frequency domain, and broken light is the material Fourier spacetime domain. Fourier mathematics is nothing other than the study of intact, orthogonal, in-phase light versus broken, non-orthogonal, out-of-phase light. How straightforward can you get? All of science's obfuscation and randomness disappears at a stroke. Mind is simply light, and matter is simply broken light. And thus we see exactly why we live in a world of mind and matter that can coexist and causally interact with each other. When Descartes spoke of mind being unextended and matter being extended, what he should have said, that mind is in phase light, which means that it's in the unextended immaterial frequency domain outside space and time, and matter is broken light that's out of phase, which means that it's in the extended material space-time domain. If Descartes were alive today, he would be saying exactly that. Descartes was a genius of the highest order, and given the math of his day, came close as anyone could to the truth of reality. When light is intact, pure, it's timeless and spaceless. For example, immortal. When it breaks, it's impure. It becomes associated with time and space and is rendered mortal. Everything comes down to sine and cosine waves and their phase relations. There's nothing else. What is a monadic mind? A soul. It's simply an autonomous, complete, and consistent set of in-phase sines and cosines. What is the material world? It's made from a shared, low-energy band of light, supplied by all monads. The involvement of all the monads and their different orientations with regard to each other leads to a symmetry breaking out of phase relations. What was the Big Bang? It was where a perfect set of monads, all perfectly in phase with each other, thus producing a singularity of perfect light, suffered a break of symmetry, leading to a tidal wave of out-of-phase relations, and thus the production of the material world. What is the Big Crunch? It's where the perfect monadic symmetry is restored. What could be simpler, more elegant, and more beautiful than what we have described? It's pure analytic mathematics. There's no need for any ad hoc, arbitrary, or non-analytic scientific waffle and moonshine. All we require is the last genius, one final great mathematician who can convert every scientific theory into terms of nothing but sines, cosines, and their phase relations, and then work out how to insert active mind into every one of these theories, including Darwinism, gravity, and quantum mechanics. Then humanity will know everything, and we shall be as gods. That's the prize that awaits. We are just one mathematical genius away from that goal. All of the ingredients are in place for that person. All that is required is to assemble those ingredients in the optimal way that explains every detail of life, down to the minutest detail. Are you that person? Somewhere out there, the person we are waiting for is going about their business, probably blissfully unaware of the destiny that awaits them. People wonder what the Illuminati are really up to. We'll tell you. We are engaged in the greatest computing project in history, a project to use the God equation, expressed through countless monads to simulate every aspect and operation of the physical world and to insert mind in all of those operations. The vast majority of members of the Illuminati work on that project, the God Project. The God Series is a tiny initiative designed to provide a written account of the thinking behind the God Project. With it, we can get new recruits up to speed much more quickly with what the God Project is all about. It's nothing less than the enterprise to illuminate the whole world and to make everyone an Illuminatus. Our task is nothing less than to reveal the mind of God. Compare Illuminism with Abrahamism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, and scientific materialism. Which one do you think seriously is capable of providing the answer to everything and enlightening the entire human race? There's only one show in town. The Illuminati are the Knights of Camelot, the Knights of the Holy Grail, who will one day deliver humanity from hell. Are you for us or against us? Are you for the light or for the darkness? The scientific method assumes the truth of scientific materialism and empiricism, hence is incapable of improving the truth of these assumptions. The scientific method cannot be applied to anything that is incompatible with the scientific method. Scientism, which is what the vast number of scientists subscribe to, is the fallacy that anything that is not amenable to the scientific method is false, wrong, or non-existent. The truth is that A, the scientific method cannot say anything at all about that which is incompatible with the scientific method, and B, the scientific method cannot prove the falsehood of anything that is incompatible with the scientific method. It's a simple, unarguable fact that no scientific concepts, such as mass, matter and gravity, space and time, can have any meaning at all in relation to singularities. The only things that are compatible with singularities are analytic mathematical entities equal to zero. Isn't that self-evident? Why has science never grasped this simple fact? It's because science isn't rational. Science operates by way of trying to match Feynman guesses to experimental results. That's the opposite of rationalism. Rationalism uses analytic first principles. Science has no such principles and contemptuously dismisses all such principles as philosophy. Science is a joke of a subject. No intellectual would ever take it seriously. True intellectuals are nothing like science's great hero, Richard Feynman. They don't go around celebrating guessing. Science is full of guessers, and guessers are charlatans.